A tense, glittering Manhattan penthouse. Isabella Ashford, the wife of a ridiculously powerful CEO, is just standing by the window. Now, for 3 long years, she's been hiding an illicit affair with her husband's most trusted business partner, a guy named Daniel Hartley. And her own words actually set the stage perfectly for our entire explainer. She says nothing stays hidden forever. Man, it's such a chilling realization, right? Because our carefully curated hidden world is about to absolutely crash into a massive corporate crime. And we are talking about a totally massive crime here. $40 million. Think about that number for a second. That is the staggering amount of money that's been systematically embezzled over 7 years from a company called Pemberton. And get this, Pemberton is the exact company Isabella's husband is right on the verge of acquiring. So who orchestrated this massive multi-million-dollar fraud? Yep, you guessed it. Daniel Hartley, the exact same guy who's sleeping with the CEO's wife. He's literally using his untouchable friendship with the CEO as the ultimate cover for his crimes. I mean, the stakes here could not be any higher.
So that brings us to Act 1, Foundations of Deception and the Illusion of Perfect Lives.
Right, so here's how the trap snaps shut. The CEO, Victoria Ashford, that's Isabella's husband, he built this pristine, massive investment empire basically on a foundation of blind trust in his ruthless friend, Daniel. But you know what happens to fragile foundations, right? They fracture. When Victoria's really sharp CFO finally uncovers all these financial discrepancies and flags that missing $40 million, Daniel is completely cornered. But instead of confessing or even just running away, Daniel sets this agonizing trap. He threatens to release hidden audio recordings, actual proof of his affair with Isabella, to the press and the board. That is, unless Victoria just lets him walk away clean with the stolen millions. It is literally the ultimate corporate blackmail, layered right over a completely devastating personal betrayal.
Which leads us directly into Act 2, the unraveling and reckoning, or when the wind comes.
So the illusion is totally shattered, right? And Victoria faces this defining, practically impossible choice. Does he pay off the guy who stole from him and slept with his wife just to save his own reputation and keep the company's stock price from tanking? Or does he face the scandal head-on? To really get the friction here, we've got to understand Daniel's super calculating worldview. He says, secrets are only valuable if you have proof. Daniel firmly believes the world rewards the ruthless, not the virtuous. He totally weaponizes his secrets. But Victoria makes the incredibly difficult, agonizing decision to just refuse the blackmail. He chooses to let the truth out, no matter the massive cost to his empire or his marriage. He refuses to pay a single dime for silence. No way.
So what actually happens when a truth bomb like that finally explodes? Well, it completely resets all of their lives. Look at where they end up. Victoria goes from this betrayed CEO fiercely protecting his reputation to resigning from his own company and going through a divorce. But he is finally honest. He's free of the lie. Then you have Isabella. She escapes being totally trapped in this wealthy lie and ends up living modestly, doing really meaningful work in nonprofits. And Daniel, our untouchable corporate golden boy, is suddenly fleeing to Singapore with his dirty money. The whole shebang is wiped clean for all 3 of them.
And that takes us to Act 3, Resurrection through Integrity, building on rock.
You know, it's fascinating what happens after you hit absolute rock bottom. It kind of forces you to discover who you actually are, underneath all the fancy titles, the custom suits, the endless money. Just look at these 2 entirely different responses to failure. Daniel flees to Singapore, starts up this shady fund with super questionable sources, and fundamentally just refuses to learn from his failure. He's doubling down on his toxic patterns. But Victoria, he voluntarily sheds his ego. He moves into a modest Brooklyn apartment and starts a completely new, clean fund totally from scratch. He chooses to rebuild ethically, literally dollar by honest dollar.
And I want you to watch how Victoria's choice plays out over time, because it's a real game changer. We start with the massive scandal, right? The $40 million embezzled, the affair revealed. Then, 3 months later, Victoria faces the music. He divorces and steps down from his own board. But look at what happens just 2 years later. His new, strictly ethical firm sees a massive 34% growth. He's totally outperforming the market. And 5 years later, Victoria actually wins a prestigious integrity award. I mean, it just proves that ethical behavior isn't just morally sound. Over the long haul, it is a strategically brilliant business model, for sure.
But hey, what about Daniel, right? 12 years. That is the federal prison sentence he eventually gets slapped with for international money laundering and fraud. So while Victoria was slowly, painstakingly building on a solid rock of integrity, Daniel's fragile house of cards ultimately just collapsed under the sheer weight of an international investigation. It is a stark, undeniable reminder. Those who continuously try to game the system, Yeah, they eventually face the severe consequences of their actions. Bringing us to our final act, the true silent comeback, or becoming who you were meant to be.
Ultimately, Victoria and Isabella, they don't find their peace in getting revenge on Daniel. They aren't trying to claw their way back to their old wealthy status. Instead, they find peace in a profound, quiet, and really genuine personal evolution. During the trial, the prosecution actually asks Victoria if he'll testify to add even more years to Daniel's sentence. He agrees to testify, but his mindset is entirely changed. He says truth is the best revenge, not destruction, but truth. He's completely traded in any desire for vindictive destruction for the steadfast, unwavering commitment to honesty. The truth itself, laid completely bare, is enough.
So, what does this all mean for us? Let's distill the absolute core lessons from Victoria's journey here. First off, success built on deception is quite literally a house of cards. It's gonna fall. Second, hiding from your failures pretty much ensures you never actually grow. Third, ethical behavior actually builds trust. And that trust, that builds real, sustainable opportunities. And finally, destruction can lead to a really beautiful rebirth. These lessons, they basically form the ultimate blueprint for genuine, character-driven success.
And here is our absolute climactic takeaway. This comes straight from Victoria Ashford himself, speaking to a room full of university finance students. He tells them, sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what actually matters. Because true comebacks, they aren't about returning to your former glory or, getting that old corner office back. They are about becoming the person you truly respect when you look in the mirror. It's about taking off the mask. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. And I want to turn this directly over to you, drawing right from Victoria's university lecture. When you're tempted, and let's be real, you will be tempted, what will you do? Are you going to take the shortcut, protect the illusion, and build a house of cards? Or will you face the truth, embrace the pain of failure, and build your foundation on rock? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'm going to leave you to really reflect on that question. Until next time, keep learning.